The Brown Trail School of Preaching has existed since 1965. It was in that time frame that some brethren in this immediate area of Texas recognized the need to have a school of preaching in this area. They realized how important it was as they looked forward to the future, as they recognized that the world's population was increasing, and as they saw the condition of the world, they recognized what had been the truth since the matter that we find addressed in Acts chapter 2 and the beginning of the proclamation of the gospel following the death, the burial, and the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. They recognized that the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. And they recognized that the only way that this was ever going to get accomplished insofar as to be able to reach out to the lost of a growing world was that there would be men who would be trained, who would be better equipped to go forth preaching God's Word. It was decided at that time to build the Brown Trail School of Preaching, and the elders of this congregation were good enough at that time to allow such to happen on the premises of this facility, and they have continued to do so over all of those years. A large number of men and their wives and their families have come through the School of Preaching here. And if it be the Lord will, there will be a large number that will come through in the next several years as we look to the future. We recognize what has always been recognized, and that is there is a need for the preaching of the gospel. We're very fortunate as we think about the facilities that we have here, the capabilities that we have. We're very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity that we do to be able to teach and to preach the gospel. When we think about preaching, many in the world today minimize its effect. Many in the world, very much like the Corinthians did, looked upon the preaching of the gospel as nothing other than foolishness. And yet we well recognize, those of us who know the truth, that that's one thing that cannot be said about the preaching of the gospel, is that it is foolishness. It is, as we've already inferred, it is the power of God unto salvation. And of course, we know well that's what Paul said in Romans 1:16. And as such, we have a responsibility, we have an obligation, as we think of the church, as we think of the future, as we think of our soul's salvation, as we think of the salvation of our children and our grandchildren, and if time allows, even the great-grandchildren that may come. We recognize that they need the gospel more than anything else in all the world. And because of that, I'm not ashamed to stand before you this afternoon and to talk to you about the School of Preaching and her needs. I'm not ashamed. Someone a while ago, Jeff Jenkins, was standing over there along the line, getting ready to pay for his meal, and I saw money and I reached. He thought I was reaching to shake his hand. I was reaching for that $20 bill. And I said, when you've been a missionary as long as I have, or a school director, the first thing you go for is the money. And then after that, you find out from whom it is that you took it. We have a wonderful privilege. We have been privileged, we've been honored to have committed unto us the greatest message in all the world. And as such, those of you who are supporters of the work of Brown Trail and other good schools, and I would say to you that there are other good schools in our brotherhood. We have a good working relationship with a number of our sister schools. And we often find ourselves, and sometimes somebody will look at us and think that we're in competition. No, we're not. We're working together for the greatest cause that has ever been, the preparing of men to go into all the world and preach the gospel. So as we think of this, and Brother Rick Rumback will be here later on today, and he'll be speaking in this lectureship. And of course, Rick is from the Southwest School of Biblical Studies, and others like him in other places They come and they join their efforts with our efforts. Just recently, we had an opportunity to be able to join together actually the efforts of 3 schools of preaching down in the Corsicana area at the congregation down there, where it was our students and the Southwest School of Preaching students and Brother B.J. Clark from the Memphis School of Preaching did the preaching. And what a wonderful opportunity to join together 3 fine schools in the teaching and the preaching that was done. I would encourage every one of us, and Willie's going to come up here in just a few moments, and he's going to tell you about some of the needs of the Hispanic department. A little bit later on, we're going to have all of the students stand, and I want you to take notice of something when they stand. I want you to pay careful attention to one thing. Not necessarily the fact that we have grown dramatically this week, and this past week as we started again. But I want you to notice the racial diversity of our students. I want you to notice that we have black men, we have Hispanic men, and we have Caucasian men. But one thing we have quickly learned as students and as instructors in this school of preaching is that we are brethren. It matters nothing at all, the color of the skin. It has nothing to do with that, folks. We're better than that. We're greater than that. But we're Christians. And these men who may have a little different pigmentation in their skin than I do, but men who may speak a little different language than I do, they are still our preaching brethren. And we need to get behind them, and we need to encourage them, and we need to support them as they prepare themselves to go, whether they're going to Mexico or whether they're going to the hood in Dallas, Texas. They need to be prepared to take the gospel. And I'm thankful to be a part of it. I was thinking a little bit earlier, there's 2 works in the brotherhood that my family's been associated with over a number of years. The work in Shimala, Tanzania, and the Brown Trail School of Preaching. I'm typically a quiet person, but my wife will tell you, you want to get him to talk? Bring up 3 things. Bring up the Bible, bring up Shimala, or bring up Brown Trail. And then just sit down and shut up because he's not going to let you get a word in edgewise. You might as well just forget about it. I'm so thankful for the guys that we have, the new students that we have. I'm thankful for our staff. I'm thankful for this eldership. I'm thankful to you and for you and all the good things that you have done. There are so many of you in here that I recognize, more so when you tell me your name, because my little pea brain starts going into to work, and it's like, okay, where have I heard that name? And then I remember, I saw it on a check. I saw it on a check. I saw it from somebody who cares for the gospel. Maybe you don't feel comfortable in standing up in front of a crowd of people and preaching, but you know you can do your part by signing your name and helping us do the work that we're doing. We're going to ask Willie to come up and give you a little bit of information about what's going on in the Hispanic or the Spanish department, and then we're going to give you a little information about some of the other things, and then introduce you to our student body and to some others that are here.
Buenas tardes, hermanos. ¿Cómo están? Some of you will say, muy bien. Good afternoon, everyone. And we want to thank you to all of you for taking the time to be with us during this luncheon. And I hope and pray that you will take into consideration the things that we are presenting to you, and that you will keep us in your thoughts, in your prayers, and also in your wallets. That way we can continue the work that we have. It was about 7 years ago when Brother Omar Hernandez and Brother Jesse Martinez approached Brother Bob Stapleton about the possibility of beginning a Spanish department where students who only spoke Spanish could come to the school and receive the same training that was imparted to the English-speaking students. And thank God, Brother Bob and then the rest of the elders agreed to begin this Spanish department. And for about 7 years, now we're beginning our 8th year, we've been training faithful book, chapter, and verse kind of preachers who will proclaim the Old Jerusalem gospel to the Spanish-speaking population of the United States and abroad. And we're also happy to say that we have a lot of the students are bilingual, so they will be able to teach and preach the gospel on both sides of the world, in English and Spanish. And for that, we're so thankful. Right now, we have about 15 full-time students in the Hispanic department and 2 students who are auditing some of the classes. So this is the first time that we actually have a larger class in the Hispanic department. Sometimes it's 3 students, sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's 7, but we're so thrilled to have all these students who every single day that they come to school, they come with a happy face, except when there is a test going on. But they come with their happy faces because they're so thankful to have the opportunity to be able to study on a full-time basis. As far as I know, I've done a few research here and there, little research here and there, and right now, as far as I know, the Brown Trail School of Preaching Spanish Department is the only full-time school of preaching that is sound in the Brotherhood. There are other schools, I'm not going to mention names or anything like that, where the director of that school believes that God blesses the Baptist Church and other things. So as far as sound school of preaching is concerned, we have one right now where we can offer several courses in the Spanish language to the students that come here. We had the privilege of bringing 2 families from Mexico through the student visa program. And they're going to be studying for 2 years. And then they're going to be going back to Mexico and preaching the gospel over there. We have one family who came to school back in 2006, who also received the training for 2 years. And they went back to Mexico, and now they're preaching the gospel in 2 congregations on Sundays. So they have a lot of work on their plate right now. So they are really practicing all the things that they learned here and the knowledge that they gained during the 2 years of study. Right now we have 2 students who are in desperate need of support. We would like to see these 2 students continue in the program for the 2 years that they have ahead of them. But if we cannot find the support that is necessary for them, perhaps they will stop their studies until they can find that support. So if you can help us with $5, $10, $25, $50. Sometimes when we talk about support, sometimes the brethren thinks that we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars or hundreds and hundreds of dollars. If you can only support a student with $25, just think about having several brethren supporting a student with $25, and we can make a difference. And we have supporters who are sending $10, $25 per month. And I believe that all of us here can do the same thing. We can support a student. So we would ask you to please keep us in your thoughts, in your prayers. And also, if you're part of a mission committee, eldership, please consider the School of Preaching, both English and Spanish department. We need more preachers. Remember the words of Jesus Christ in Matthew chapter 9, verses 36 through 38. The work is plentiful, but the laborers are few. We are trying to make a difference here at the Brown Trail School of Preaching. We want to produce sound men who will preach the gospel of Christ, but at the same time who will be humble enough to live what they preach and to lead others to the kingdom of God. We have several support packages with the names of the 2 students that are in need of support right now. So if you would, please go to the display area and you will find the Spanish department display. You will find some of these packages. Please take one with you and pray about it and also consider supporting us. We also try to maintain the brethren informed about the things that we do. So we publish Men of the Book. It's in English, so you can read it. We do it in Spanish and in English, so it's double work. And you'll find pictures and information about the work that is going on in the Hispanic department. If you would like to receive these, please give me your email address, and we will add you to our contact list. And we have several information there, like what faithful brethren are saying about the Hispanic department. We also have one comment that I would like to read to you by Brother Wendell Winkler. Before he passed away, I approached him about giving us some words of encouragement and recommendation. Notice what he said. The Brown Trail School of Preaching Hispanic Department is a wonderful place to train for greater service in the kingdom of God. The administration and faculty is composed of godly men of unusual ability. Their dedication and soundness in the faith is unquestioned. The courses of study are biblically comprehensive and thorough. The facilities are some of the finest. Any student who enrolls and pursues his studies with diligence will be richly rewarded now and for the rest of his life. And all the instructors here in the Brown Trail School of Preaching Hispanic Department are graduates of the School of Preaching. Brother Jesse Martinez and Brother Obed Rodriguez and myself are graduates of the school. So we receive the same training, and that's the same training that we are trying to teach our students in the Hispanic department. So once again, consider supporting our efforts. Keep these two young men in your prayers. One is Juan Luna, and the other one is Juan Garcia. Both of these men right now stand in need of your support, so please keep them in your prayers. And if you can support, please talk to us, either to Brother Bob Stapleton or myself, and we'll be more than happy to tell you or give you more information about the things that we are doing and about the students who are in need of support. Thank you very much, and I want to say also thank you to the Brown Trail congregation for helping with furniture to the new students that came from Mexico. Thanks to you, thanks to Sister Melanie, Sister Doris Powell, and many more who put together several furniture to help these students in need. Obviously, they cannot bring all their furniture from Mexico. It will be a lot of expense, but the congregation here was able to help them. And for that, we're thankful. We're thankful to the elders also for allowing the Hispanic department to continue. Brother Bob Stapleton for always encouraging all of us to continue and for always being there for us. And thank you very much.
I remember it was in December of 2003. I actually had started trying to get everything moved over here and to begin my work as the director of the School of Preaching when Jesse and Omar and others came to me and said they wanted to talk to me about something that they had in mind. And we met in my office and they pitched, if you would, the idea of having a Spanish department in the School of Preaching. And I told them, well, I haven't unpacked everything yet. I guess it's as good a time as any to go to the elders and ask them about the possibility of having it. I figured it would be simpler at that time to just go ahead and carry the books back downstairs that I hadn't put on the shelf. But they very graciously accepted the challenge and the responsibility that goes along with that. And I am so thankful for that. When we think about the work, whether it's in the Hispanic department or the English department or whatever it is, we recognize again, and I can't overestimate how important this is. I wasn't reared in the church. My life was going in the wrong direction very, very rapidly. But somebody cared enough to bring the gospel to my wife and subsequently to me. And I'll always be thankful for that little old lady. I've often said, and of course now it's getting harder to find little old ladies as I get older, but I've said so many times I'm so thankful for little old ladies in the church. This lady still believed in the Great Commission when it seemed to be it had been something that had been forgotten. And I'm thankful that she challenged my wife that led to the preacher at the congregation having an opportunity to sit down with this old hardhead and to show him the truth of the gospel. We have nothing to be ashamed of, brethren. We have nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to the gospel of Christ. We have a good number of our graduates of the School of Preaching here. I would like for those who are graduates to please stand. I'm not going to introduce them by name. I probably would forget some. These men span a number of years, a couple of them right back there while we were still chiseling the notes in stone with hammer and chisel. But we've actually moved up to the point in time where now we're using computers and all of those things in the class and classroom. Gentlemen, thank you, and continue to preach the Word. I look at these men, and I know how valuable they are to the congregations where they serve. I get reports from people that come back and tell me what a wonderful job Brother so-and-so is doing and continues to do and has done over all these years as he has labored with this congregation. And it's exciting to hear those kind of things. It's exciting to know that we're making a difference. It's exciting to know that someday, beyond the judgment day, when God is going to separate all humanity, that there will be some people in heaven. There'll be some in heaven because of the efforts of those who went through the Brown Trail School of Preaching. We have a good number of students. All of our students are here. We would ask for them to please stand now. Got a couple back there along the wall and scattered. Some one back there waving, and that's Juan Garcia back there, I believe, and he's one of the guys that's needing support. So now you know who needs support. These are our new students. A lot of them are new. We started a program last year where we went back to the way that it was at the very beginning. When there was only one enrollment of students per year. And we started in January of last year doing that. So as such, we did not have a midterm. So we saw some empty seats. As a matter of fact, we saw an actual empty classroom for a while. And I think some thought that we might have been crazy in doing this because what it did was make the school so small in number. But I thought for sure that things will turn around, and they have. And we're thankful for these number of guys. And again, please, I call your attention to the diversity of the races that are here. I had somebody tell me one time, and that was a mistake. They told me that Brown Trail School of Preaching is a white man's school. I started chewing on him. I was on the cell phone. I started chewing on him until my phone battery went dead. I marched myself downstairs out to my car, got my battery charger out, plugged it into the phone, and called him up. And after a while, he said, enough, you've convinced me. He said, I'd like to come over and talk to you someday. And I said, that's fine, but I said, if you do, we'll pick up right where we left off. He said, no. He said, I don't need any more. I don't need any more. It doesn't matter whether these guys are white, black, or blue. They're my brethren, and they're preparing themselves to be gospel preachers, and I commend them for that, and I encourage you for doing so, and I hope you will too. Thank you, gentlemen. We have a good number of our staff here, either full-time or part-time. For our full-time men, Willie, who was up here a few moments ago, serves as the director for the Spanish department, the Hispanic department. He preached for 5 years full-time in the Hispanic congregation in Lufkin, Texas. He did graduate from Brown Trail in 2001, received a BA in Biblical Studies from the Theological University of America in 2003. He preaches full-time, part-time, I guess you say, pretty much for the congregation up at Plano East. J.J. Hendricks, you've already saw what Willie looked like, so he doesn't need to stand. J.J. Hendricks is a 2010 graduate of the Brown Trail School of Preaching, has BSE in physical education with a minor in physics, a master's in the art of teaching, and is working toward his PhD in religious education. He's presently serving as the field rep for the school here and works with the Smithfield congregation here in this area on behalf of the evangelism program that they have. Jesse Martinez over here
Jesse graduated in 2003, as I've already indicated. He has preached for several Spanish-speaking congregations in the area. He has now been here 2 years, just a little over 2 years with us, working full-time. And he also preaches for the Iglesia de Cristo that assembles here in this building on Sundays and Wednesdays. So doing a fine job there. Pat McIntosh. Pat graduated back in '89 when they were still doing the stone and the chisel stuff. He holds a BA and a Master of Science, a Master of Divinity, and a Doctor of Ministry from Amridge University. Prior to coming to us in 2009, he was Assistant Director of Extensions, Bear Valley Bible Institute of Denver, a position that he held from 2001 up until 2009. Pat is serving as the full-time, part-time kind of basis preacher down at the College Hill congregation in Hillsboro, and has been down there now for a couple years. No work can ever progress without a supportive backbone, if you would. The backbone of a congregational structure, of course, would be the leadership. No congregation can be any stronger than the leadership. Brown Trail has been fortunate over the years to have a number of good men who have served as elders. Men who were willing to stand up and oftentimes stand against the tide insofar as the direction that the world would have the church to go. The Brown Trail congregation, as I said earlier, the elders way back there in 1965, saw the need to have this school. And through all the years since then, there has been that continued determination, that continued commitment by the elders who have served. Men who have come, and many of whom have now passed on to their reward, of whom they had a commitment to the cause of Christ, a commitment to the proclamation of the pure and unadulterated gospel, a commitment to, again, the school of preaching. I would like for our present elders to please stand. All of them are here, but Eddie Parker, I don't see Eddie anywhere. Larry McWilliams, Larry Rice, Maxie Bourne, Guy Elliott, and Bobby Watts. We thank these men for their continued support and encouragement for the work that is being done here. We recognize that without that effort, we could not accomplish what we're accomplishing here. The ladies, and I'm not sure if there were any gentlemen working in the kitchen. I think there were a couple, but ladies, thank you. You did a fine job, as you always do. I said a little while ago, whenever we as Christians gather together, we always do two things. It seems to be we always eat and we take up a collection. So we've already eaten, so maybe we'll forego the collection. But anyway, again, please know that we appreciate your efforts. Please know that as we look at the future, we're committed. We're committed. My wife keeps saying I need to be committed, but we're committed in a different direction. We're committed to the cause that's before us to stand strong. There are those who would have us to compromise. There are those who would have us to compromise on what the New Testament teaches on the plan of salvation. I can assure you we're not going to. There are those who would have us to compromise on the ethics that are laid out within the New Testament concerning the way that we Christians should conduct ourselves. We're not going to. There are those who would have us to compromise when it comes to matters pertaining to when we assemble as Christians and what we are to do in our worship of God. We're not going to. There are those who would have us to compromise on matters such as marriage, divorce, and things of that nature, but we're not going to. There are those who would have us to compromise on just about everything that the Bible has to say. But I can assure you one thing, and I hope that you will go away from here today knowing this, that our commitment is as strong as it has ever been. Our resolve is as strong as it has ever been. And as such, you can go forth with a knowledge and an understanding of the fact that we are still determined to preach the Word, to be instant in season, out of season, to reprove, to rebuke, to exhort with all the long-suffering endurance. And I hope that's what you're looking for in us. But if it isn't, well, we're not going to change. We're just not going to. I think about the words of the Apostle Paul. And I've often said that other than, of course, Jesus Christ, there's no one in the New Testament that I would want to be more like than the Apostle Paul. If they could engrave that on my tombstone, that he made it, and everybody would know what that means, that he was like Paul, I could be happy. But you remember what Paul, after having said what he did in Galatians chapter 1, verses 6 and following, how that he had expressed his shock, his dismay at the directions these here, so many at Galatia, had gone, that they had turned away, that they had actually perverted the gospel. And then he had said to them concerning that anathema that would come upon them, that, as he says in verse 8, but though we are an angel from heaven, preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached, let him be accursed. But he takes it a step further in the next verse. He says, as we said before, so say I now again, if any man preach any other gospel unto you than that which you have received, let him be accursed. But then in verse 10, he asks a couple questions. For do I now persuade men or God? Or do I seek to please men? Or if I yet please men, I should not be the servant of Christ. I don't know about you. I want to be a servant. And I want these men to be a servant. I want them to be able to go forth from here, holding this book aloft, and saying, this is my guide. This is my rule. And we do not vary from it one bit. And if they will do that, if they will make that commitment, if they will hold to that as strong as they need to, then I'm sure on that judgment day, when God must separate all of us, he'll be able to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Is that not what we look forward to? A few years ago, I had the opportunity to go down to a little congregation in Blooming Grove, Texas. I'd never heard of Blooming Grove, Texas until I got a phone call one day asking for someone to come down and fill in for the preacher who was going to be out of town. And I thought, well, I'm not doing anything. I'll just go down to Blooming Grove, Texas and see what there is in Blooming Grove, Texas. And my wife and I went down and had the privilege of meeting with the church, assembling with them, and having the opportunity to teach and to preach. And then a few weeks later, I got another call asking me to come back to do the same, and we were thankful for that opportunity. And just about every Sunday since, for the last 7 years, I've had the privilege of going down and meeting with these brethren. One of their elders, Calvin Rasco, is with us, and I'm going to ask him to come up and lead us in a dismissal prayer. But this little congregation has been a very important part in this work. I've lost count the number of times one of the elders have come up and handed me a check for $5,000. They've said, take this. Help some of your guys get through school.
It's because of men like these. It's because of people like you. We're able to do what we do. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Oh, what marvelous mercy, what infinite love, what immeasurable grace I see. By his blood I am cleansed, I am happy and free, through his suffering on Calvary. Oh, the riches and depth of such wonderful love, flowing boundless and full and free. And the debt on the cross for my sins was all paid in his suffering.